Well, that's it. The American dream of owning a home is getting flushed down the toilet, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or is there? Well, it really depends on what news outlet you're listening to, what article you read, or which YouTube video you're watching. So we're going to talk about what is really going on in the real estate market, especially here in Dallas, Texas. I'm going to break this all down, and we're going to find out, is it getting out of reach, or is there something you can do about it? So let's dig into this article here that says a gap in the dream. DFW's home building spree isn't enough for millions of new residents. Now look at this. Let's scroll down here and take a look. It says Dallas-Fort Worth topped 8 million residents and was the fastest growing metro in the country. All right. So now we move down here a little bit more, and what you're finding out is that Dallas is on pace to actually surpass New York City. I mean, have you ever heard of that in your life? It's been New York, LA, Chicago as the leading metros in the country for decades. And so now they're talking about Dallas having the opportunity to pass up New York and become number one by the end of the century. Now, I know that seems like a long ways off, but they are projecting by the end of the decade that Dallas could pass up Chicago and become the number 3 metro. So that's a pretty big deal. Now, look at this. More than 367,000 new homes and 181,000 apartments have been built in the last decade. By one estimate, Dallas-Fort Worth metro area is still short by almost 50,000 units. So if you're wondering why prices aren't budging right now, it really comes down to simple economics of supply and demand. It just is. So let's go down here a little bit more. Prices have exploded. In January of 2020, the median price of a DFW home was just over $267,000. Today, that mark has topped $400,000. And if I pull up some data right here just to back that up, this is actual data from the MLS, not other iBuyer platforms or anything like that. You can see here in actually, let's go back 5 years. Look at this, pre-2020, look at 2019. The average home price was $223,000 in Dallas, Texas. Now you fast forward and think about this. If you bought in that time frame, look where you're at right now, where the average home price being $437,000. That is a increase of over $214,000 in equity for you as a homeowner. And here towards the end of the video, I'll explain why that is so important. But if you're looking at buying a home, that is not the best position to be in. But if you own a home, then you're in a pretty good spot. So let's go back to this article. And it says high interest rates have discouraged recent activity in the market and have driven the final cost of a mortgage payment even higher. So again, this is something that is really pricing people out of the market. But now just within the last week and rates dropping to around 6.4, 6.5, they're saying that is bringing an extra 2 million people back into the market, making them eligible to buy a home. Think about that. Just a 0.5% drop, and that could bring in 2 million people. Now, what they're saying right now, there was a recent article I talked about on a couple of videos ago that there is 7.9 million people in the US right now that can afford a mortgage but don't own a home. So that should give you a really good idea of the amount of people that are sitting on the sideline who are waiting for interest rates to come down, and we still have the same inventory problems. Now look at this. While construction costs have flattened out following 2020, developers say rising land prices threaten to hinder affordability further. So now we know land is scarce. Right? We've known that all the time. Now, even according to this website here, estimates the housing shortage grew to 4.5 million homes in 2022, and that's up from 4.3 million. Now, if you look at the home shortage nationwide, that was estimated at 4.3 million homes, and now they're saying that has increased to 4.5 million homes, and the situation worsened despite the construction boom. So that year, 1.4 million homes were built, which was a record. However, the number of U.S. families increased by 1.8 million. So again, a supply and demand issue. Now, between 2010 and 2022, the metro area here in Dallas added 661,000 homes and apartments, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Yet DFW added 1.54 million people over the same period. That's almost a million shortage, right? A million shortage of residents to actual homes that were built. So think about that, 1.54 to 661,000. The number of vacant homes dropped by almost 40,000. So even the vacant homes out there sitting up are starting to get gobbled up. All right. Now, if we scroll down a little bit more, Dallas-Fort Worth led all metro areas in population growth, adding an estimated 152,000 residents between July 2022 and July 2023. And that has been pretty consistent for Dallas-Fort Worth overall, adding about 150,000 people per year. So the building is not keeping up with that. And you can see stock of single family homes has declined. So you're going to see out there on the news right now that inventory is shooting through the roof. It's doubling, it's tripling. We've seen more inventory on the market than ever before, but they're not telling you about the population growing, right? All the people moving in here, the families that are increasing and growing and ready to make a move. Single family homes fell by 5,600 during the same period, 5,600 units. So think about that again, supply and demand. So if we scroll down a little bit further, you can see here, new homes in Dallas-Fort Worth are not keeping up with the population. So again, just more charts and graphs that you can see here. Active listings in North Texas continues to climb. They topped 27,900, up nearly 45%. So these are the headlines you're going to see all over YouTube and in the news. That inventory is skyrocketing, right? And this is a problem. That's what's going to cause the market to crash. Yet, I'm showing you by the numbers right here that the families are increasing, the population is increasing as a whole, and that still doesn't even cover the amount of housing that's needed. Months of housing inventory hit a 12-year high of 3.8 months. Again, you're going to be hearing 12-year high. That sounds very scary, but 3.8 months still means it's a seller's market on paper. However, homes are sitting, at least pre-existing homes. A lot of people are making their move towards new construction, and here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if you're an existing homeowner thinking about selling, that's what you have to compete with, is all of the new construction right now. And think about the amenities that they have to offer, the entertainment districts they are building, the pools. Some of these have bowling alleys and water slides and surfing platform. I mean, it's crazy what they're adding in these communities. On top of that, you can get pretty good deals and incentives the builders are willing to negotiate right now. So if you have a pre-existing home, especially the one that was built that's older than 10 years and it's not updated or doesn't have all the bells and whistles of what they're offering in these new construction, that's what you're going to have trouble. So what this means is that if we were to sell through all the current inventory, another house never came back on the market, we would currently sell through all the inventory within 3.8 months. That makes it a seller's market. But because buyers really hold the power right now because they're waiting on the sidelines because of interest rates, because of home prices, if they do make a move, they want some concessions, right? They want something to be given back to them. And so if they go after a pre-existing home and it's not updated, or it's 10 or 20 years old, they're going to be looking for a deal. So if you're overpricing your pre-existing home or you're a little over ambitious on that, it's going to sit. And so right here, yes, on paper, a seller's market, but really the buyers have the control right now. So again, be mindful of what you're hearing on the news. 12-year highs, 45% increase in inventory. That all sounds scary and it makes for great thumbnails on YouTube, but what does that really mean? It means that we still don't have the inventory that is there. And think about this, as interest rates start to come down and they drop into the 6s or even the 5s, how many people are going to come back into the market? And if they all start to come back in the market at one time, remember what happened in 2022? Yeah, that was kind of great as a seller, but what'd you have to do? You had to turn around and buy a home at the same time. So let's go through here and see what else we have to offer. So now they're starting to talk about Forney, a magnet for Dallas commuters who want affordable houses and highly rated schools. So that's an option of like, where would I go? If I were to sell my house right now, what would I look for? Well, yeah, Forney is a great option. We'll pull that up in the data here in just a second. But to keep up with the region's booming population growth and lower inventory of existing houses for sale, newly built homes play a large role in the DFW market. So again, you are going to see things of people talking about that we are overbuilding and the new construction market is about to crash. But new homes also accounted for about 40% of the home sales in June. So pre-existing homes are selling, but you really need those key factors to come into play. You need to be priced right. You need to be priced aggressively. You need to be willing to negotiate and offer some sort of concessions that will help incentivize that buyer as well. And ideally, you need to be updated on your property. Otherwise, you're competing with brand new homes that people can move right into. And in Forney or Princeton or even Anna or Melissa, you can start getting into homes that are start in the $200,000 range, $300,000, $400,000 range. So, just keep that in mind. Now, within 8 months, price of lots increased by 20% in a neighborhood in Crowley. Okay, that's outside of Fort Worth. We don't worry too much about that, but interest rates are up, meaning it's more expensive to finance development. Banks are funding smaller portions of these projects. Those costs are then pushed on to the customers. So we go back here a little further and it says there may be 2 rate cuts this year. We've just seen one, okay? Now they're talking about another one possibly coming up in September. If they do that and drop down to 6%, more people are going to start coming into the market, all right? It says right there, this could even bring more buyers into the market. Now, there are not enough lots built in the market. Some some zoning restrictions also prove to be a challenge. So Texas is pretty good. Dallas is pretty good about proving any zoning changes or anything like that. I know that's the big problem in California, New York, Washington State, where they're over-regulated, they're very restrictive, and sometimes it takes 1 or 2 years to get permits approved for new construction. Absolutely crazy, especially with the housing crisis and shortage that is happening there. Their population on top of it. All right, so that pretty much sums up this article. Let's see here. Investors see older, cheaper apartments in DFW as opportunities. Okay, this is kind of gearing more towards multifamily. I know that for myself, investing in multifamily right now, we are buying deals because we are finding great deals. And that's what it really comes down to, is finding a deal in any market. It doesn't matter. Look, we help people buy and sell homes every single day, and we have to do our absolute best to get them the best deal possible, either on the sell side or the buy side. So let's go back into the data and take a quick look at this. Again, if you're in the Dallas area and you bought around January 19, by the way, I have a house in Dallas that I bought in February of 2019, and this is showing the average price around $223,000, and now we're up to $437,000. Again, that's a difference of $214,000 in equity that you could be holding in your home right now. And whenever I do the value estimates on my property, that's where I'm sitting at. I have about $200,000 in equity in that home. And you think about that, on average, that is a 95% increase in equity. Think about that. Your home is almost doubled if you bought back then. And back then in February 2019, whenever I purchased, rates were at 5%. And I was like, cool. Didn't blink twice. It didn't bat an eye. I was like, 5%, no problem. I went for it. Now I've refinanced that property to 2.25% right now, which is why I won't sell it. Plus I've rented it well over market value for that home. But at the same time, it's got $200,000 in equity in it. And I just bought it 5 years ago. Now, where would you go? Let's say right now you have that $200,000 in equity in the Dallas area. Again, a lot of people are making their move to Forney. So if we take a look real quick what's going on in Forney, you can see it's a little bit lower price, but again, Forney on average $236,000, very similar to Dallas 5 years ago. And look where you're at right now. You're about $100,000 less. So if you were to sell right now and you think it's a little bit too expensive to buy in Dallas, would you consider going about 20 minutes east of Dallas into Forney, get a brand new construction home, get it for $100,000 less, and you could pocket $100,000. By the way, if you're single, that would be tax-free. If you're married, that would be tax-free as well. If you've owned your home longer than 2 years, of course, if you bought 5 years ago, then of course you would be in that situation. So again, you have to understand, like, what is the true value of your home, and is it time to make that move? If you are thinking about selling, you've got a lot of factors to consider. We're in this catch-22 type of market right now. Again, on paper, seller's market, but in reality, buyer's market. On top of that, if you wait to sell, everybody's saying that the market's going to crash. I don't really see that at this moment, but if you believe the market's going to crash, then you would probably want to sell now, because we're probably at the peak, and we know we're moving into fall and winter. And I've always talked about seasonality. Prices always drop in fall and winter, even though this last winter they didn't drop too much. Well, actually, you can see right here, January, see that dip right here in Dallas? So yeah, if you were to sell in the fall or winter, you'd be hitting this dip as compared to selling in the summer. And you can see the dip right now, even as we move into the end of summertime. So right now we could be hitting peaks. And if you believe the market's going to crash, you probably want to sell before the market crashes. Now, if you're thinking about buying, again, catch 22, because right now our interest rates higher. Yes. Our price is higher. Yes. But here's what I would do. And I bought a new house last year in the dip during February of 2023. I did a 2-1 buy down on my interest rate. So interest rates were about 7.5% at that time, and buying it down 2 points for the first year, it dropped it to 5.5% for the first year. Now it's at 6.5%, right? So it's 1% lower than it was. And so right now I'm very even with the market. The interest rates right now are about 6.5%. My home is at 6.5%. So I am betting that within the next 6 months to a year, rates will come down in the 5s. Whenever they do that, I will permanently refinance for that lower rate. All right. But that allowed me also to build in almost over $100,000 in equity in my home just in the last year, because prices have increased. So for me, I'm in the position that I want to be in. And for you, okay, our price is going to crash 50% in the Dallas market. That's hard to see. I mean, even if we were to go back into 2020 levels, or I mean 2020 and 2008, if we look at this, there wasn't significant drops in Dallas, or even if you look at Forney until, look at this, maybe Dallas, January of 2009 kind of hit that bottom. Wow, average home price 85,000. Can you imagine that? But again, guess what? Everyone's going to say, yeah, I wish I would have bought back then. But what has always served me well was not waiting to buy real estate. It was buying real estate and waiting, because if you plan to buy a home, especially your homestead where you plan to live, then most of the time you plan to be there at least 3 years. Now, in the Dallas market, we'll get out of any type of situation within 3 years. I'm pretty sure of it, unless the market and the economy goes to complete crap, which who knows, it could. And I can't promise you anything, but I just know that real estate over time is usually worth a lot more. But all these factors come into play, and it really just depends on your unique situation. And so that's something that you have to think about over and over again, and ultimately just make a decision that, is this the right time for you to move, or do you have to move? I know we deal with a lot of people coming from out of state. They're getting relocated here, or they're taking on new positions or new jobs or moving closer to family, and they have to move and they want to find a good deal. And that's something that we've always done, is find a deal in any type of market. It doesn't matter. That's our specialty. But for us, it always comes down to a math problem. Most people don't look at it that way. They think about these things emotionally versus logically. We just got to run the numbers. That's why it's always best to kind of talk through that situation. But ultimately, if you're curious about what your home value is right now, check the description below. You can submit a free home evaluation just to see. And if you want to know why I left Dallas in the first place, make sure you check out this video.